world of 1916 was complex. Well, the world of 1945 was complex. The world of 2016 is intensely complex. You'll be dealing with terrorists. You'll be dealing with hybrid armies. You'll be dealing with little green men. You're going to be dealing with tribes. You'll be dealing with national leaders and local leaders. You'll be dealing with politics and economics. And you'll be dealing with direct fire and indirect fire. And you're going to be dealing with it all. And it's all going to be dealt with simultaneously.
Month's just flying right by, heading towards July, and we have concerns. We always have concerns, but you know, with all the information that Julie was coming up with, shows that there's a pattern. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of this. Before I do, I want to make sure that anyone who's new listening to us, that the Tinfoil Hat Club was basically created out of Scott Hensler Network, where Julie and I basically taught and witnessed, or brought people to the understanding about deliverance in the spirit world that were professing Christians. And we came to a point where we wanted to expand to reach out to the lost, to those which we call the lost. I know that those who are lost don't think they are. I was an enemy of God at one time for most of my life, and I regret that terribly. Now that I know the difference, I was being used by evil to continue the evil process of eliminating and destroying this world and my ignorance of the spirit realm. And so what we're doing is we're trying to educate everyone on both sides of the fence, so to speak, on what's really going on so you can make your own decision. We're not here to force anything down your throat or cram anything that you don't want. We're just simply here to give the information. And so as we move forward and expand, we are venturing into new areas that we probably really wouldn't have talked about in the other show. Now, I continue to do the other show on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And last night I did it on psychotronics, the war that is being waged on us from the technologies used by the elite, supposedly the elite, the Illuminati, the Luminous, the elevated, the reptilians, those of serpent seed, those that are basically evil. And what that means is that there's a continual soft kill being performed on all of us. Now, if you didn't hear last night's show, there was some complaints that they weren't able to hear it. I know that, in fact, I want to just basically take Blog Talk to the task that we've had nothing but problems with Blog Talk. Doesn't seem like the Hagmans do, or they may have a little bit of this and that, but I have a lot of problems with Blog Talk, and even though we're on another channel, it seems to be the same issue, and that is those that try and play the show or listen to it later in the archives can't seem to run it. So the best thing to do is when you bring up the Blog Talk and come to our channel, that when you open up one of the shows, at the right-hand corner, you'll see a download button, upper right hand. And so it seems to work the best to download the whole thing and then listen to it. So just as a suggestion, because we've lost some listeners, or some of the listeners don't get a chance to listen to all the shows because of this issue. And obviously this is unacceptable, and we have complained to Blog Talk, and it doesn't seem to do any good. So you can make your own decision what's really truly going on here. I know what's going on. Now, again, I'm Scott Hensler, and Julie Flores will be joining me here. And on the other channel, we have close to 250 shows, about 245 or so. And as I continue to do those shows, I'm still bringing those issues or bringing up the facts that pertain to Christians. On this show, we hit both sides. And so if you did not, again, listen to last night's show, I recommend it, because I'm telling you what, the seriousness of the technology being used against us affects us all. And I can assure you that whether you believe in Christ or not, you're a victim. You're being a victim of the evil that is being portrayed on this world. And I want to also address, too, I didn't get a chance to put it in my notes, and I forgot about it. When it comes to this technology and the use of it to bug us, to monitor us, to videotape us, and so forth, when it comes to hidden cameras and hidden bugs, microphones, and things like that, or even tracking devices, that on the market out there on the Internet are jammers. Now, I need to warn everyone about jammers. Now, jammers do work, the stuff that may be coming out of China, but they're actually capable of blocking the signals. I need to warn you that the Federal Communications here in the United States does not like jammers. Okay, now when the issues happened in our southern part of the United States, when it came to the hurricane that flooded that area, when it came to the issues of trying to save people, bring emergency communications, the New Orleans flood, that what the FCC and the military did is they jammed the ham radio operators. So those that were part of the emergency system, and I've done that for years. I've been in emergency services for a very long time. I'm a ham radio operator. I'm very familiar with it. And there's one particular group called Mars, and it happens to be volunteers who have ham radio license that come in and set up communications. So we can set up communications in a hospital and work remotely. Let's say if there's a disaster and the phone lines are down, just like it was during the New Orleans flood. And what the FCC and the military were doing is they were jamming us. So we couldn't do what we've been called to do by Congress, by the way. In fact, that's one of the reasons we're able to get ham licenses, because of Congress. We had pioneers like Senator Barry Goldwater, who kept us afloat when they tried to take our channels away from us and use them for commercial means before cell phones. But the point of it is that jamming does work. Russia was jamming back when the Berlin Wall was up. But here's the problem. Since there are rules against jamming by the Federal Communication License, that you as a citizen, if you buy one of these jammers and you shove it into the cigarette lighter in your car and you're driving along and you're keeping the tracking device from working, or the microphone that's hidden in your car, or whatever the situation is, you're transmitting. Now, there was a individual that was concerned that his wife was tracking him. Apparently he had issues with infidelity. And so he bought one of these things, and during lunchtime, he would go over by the airport and eat his lunch, or who knows what else he was doing, in his van. Well, because of this jammer, the FAA, Federal Aviation beacons that have to do with bringing planes in and out safely, was being jammed. And so there were very close incidences that happened of putting the planes at risk because their communication was interfered with by this guy who had a jammer in his car, simply being close to the runway eating his lunch. He was hit with a over $30,000 fine. Now, he had no idea what he was doing, but he had a jammer. You're not even to be in possession of a jammer. Like CB operators cannot be in possession of a high-powered amplifier for their CBs, like these truckers and stuff. A ham radio guy can, because he's licensed for it. So just be very careful. If you think you're going to go that route, this is one of the avenues that the FCC or the government, the feds themselves, would use against you to take away your jammer and then fine you for it. So I'm just warning you, don't do it. If you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. Now, when it comes to the federal government, what we have is tyranny. The people fear the government instead of the government fearing the people. And we have reptilians in the White House. We've had them there actually for a while. The Bushes are a bloodline of that. The Clintons most likely are clones and at least satanic ritually abused individuals. And whatever their situation is, none of this is good. None of this is leading us to anything that's going to be beneficial for this country. Their whole premise, their whole existence is to destroy the Constitution. Now, I bring this up because a lot of this is being told to us in the movies. A lot of this, as Julie was pointing out in the Orlando false flags, is brought to us in other means. Now, two movies that have recently come out, Olympus Has Fallen and London Has Fallen, it told us or is telling us what they're doing. They're instructing us in detail as to what they have plans for us. Now, Hollywood is basically run by the Zionists. The Zionists are of the New World Order. They are of that group of people that consider themselves above humans. And so through the occult, they use movies, they use media, magazines, different commercials and things to show us that they're in control, they have the world and what they're going to do next. Now, as I mentioned, that there is all the stuff that Julie's been bringing out, they've actually stepped their game up. The amount of content that Julie has been presenting to us over the past days is astronomical. It's the probability of it being incorrect is not even a factor. There's too much here to say that there's nothing going on. There's obviously something going on. And at the level that they're doing it at is absolutely frightening, because it means they're getting ready for something. And so Julia, when she comes on, she'll be talking a little bit about that. So we need to understand that we had Olympus has fallen, London has fallen, Orlando has fallen, New York has fallen, 9/11, and now they're talking about San Andreas Fault, so California will be fallen. Now, we saw the movie a couple of years ago or a year or so ago of San Andreas Fault. Now, we know that these are issues, but through the technologies of sub-audio, otherwise causing things to vibrate in large masses, and even nuclear devices that we've been told have been placed strategically offshore in these crevices and underground areas that, when explodes, can actually cause these two masses, the land masses, to shift and really, turn things upside down, is something to take into consideration. That if California in itself were to have that issue, the economy itself would collapse. Just thousands of people, as I mentioned before, that would just be, a horrible situation. And I mentioned this before, that even with the nuclear weapons, let's say that a bomb does go off in California, a nuclear device, and we lose 1 million people, which is very easy to do because of the mass population, that then there could be potentially 1 to 5 million to 10 million demons now looking for a new home. So those who have open doors, those who have sin in their life, now all of a sudden are going to get a free demon with every sin that they do. And that's not a good situation. And then you throw on top of that the psychotronic warfare that can actually mimic demons and the symptoms and the issues that come upon them. So we need to be very aware of what they're doing, and Julie will bring that into a little bit more. Now, I don't know if you remember when it came, the Olympus has fallen, referring to the White House, that this was a Korean attack. London has fallen. This was a terrorist attack from Pakistan, otherwise arms dealers. And so, again, they're trying to blame other countries when in reality it's our own country that is doing this to ourselves. Now, there's a new book out called Crisis of Character that one of the Secret Service agents during the 90s that was overseeing the Clintons when they were in the White House had written pretty much the insanity of this wacko woman that basically I've heard names like Hildebeest. She's insane. She's not right. She's a psychopath, sociopath, whatever you want to call it. She's most likely not even human. She's probably clone number 37. But whatever the deal is, it will be interesting to see what's in this book. Now, again, we have to understand that there's controlled opposition. And anybody that's been a part of the CIA, part of the Secret Service, part of the FBI, we can't trust them at all. And so we have to look at this in a different manner and not just accept it for what it is. Now, Obama himself, well, the stinker that he is, there's the potential that he'll bring in martial law anyways, and everything that we're doing is just simply to take our eyes off of the truth of what's really going on, and I think that's most likely. And then talking about movies, Money Monster, that particular movie that's out is showing that how easily the stock market can be manipulated. If you have money in the stock market, well, you know, there's every indication that they plan on crashing that, and it's amazing that it hasn't already happened. But when they do, it's going to be a very terrible situation because people are going to lose their life savings, are going to lose everything. And that's exactly what they want. So we need to understand that the stock market is being manipulated. And again, I think Money Monster is something that tells us that. Now, censorship. Again, with Blog Talk, with Google, Google being CIA, NSA, these things, that it's very difficult to get a decent ranking if you're telling the truth. Now, they block, they hide, they do all kinds of things. I've told the story that when I saw the missile fly over Phoenix, the intercontinental ballistic missile that was fired offshore from California, just north of Catalina Island, I witnessed it come over Phoenix. I later retraced my steps in order to get a timeline, documented everything, calculated from the NASA website on projectile, those things that have to do with rockets, and gave an estimate of what was really going on. And I had a business on the internet that was had to do with outdoor goods, you know, such as camping gear and emergency supplies. And I was finally doing well after several years of working hard at it. And within 48 hours, I was completely wiped off the map. I was destroyed. I lost everything. Right after I posted the article that I had written about what I had seen. So don't for a moment think that Google isn't going to do those things to keep us from understanding the truth. Because they do. Again, the people who run this are sadomasochistic. They're sociopaths, psychopaths. Their behavior is basically becoming normal for officials nowadays, those in the White House, those in Congress, those in the Senate, those in state. I mean, it's just amazing. Now, I wanted to bring something up that, you know, the feminists have been pushing the rape culture issue. Now, rape is obviously a problem. And here's the thing. With them forcing Muslims down our throat, and as I mentioned yesterday on the show, that there was a young girl down in southern Idaho that was raped by some Muslims, and they basically covered everything up. There has been no arrest. There has been no charges filed. There was a day that would not happen, that this would be very quickly taken care of. Even the judges closed the case or the information on it. And here's the thing. Those of the feminist group, which is, again, another psyop, it's a social engineering. That's all that it is. And so those who are in that frame of mind are easily manipulated and controlled. And I've talked about those that are in that basically the demons have them. Now, when we talk about Muslims coming in, they'll want to force Sharia law. When Sharia law comes in, it basically means all women will get raped. I'm sorry. It'll mean mutilation of the genitals. So where are the feminists? And so also, you know, talking about bestiality, where are the animal rights activists? Why are people not crying out that these things should not take place? So when we see that they allow, one to come in and everything's fine, but yet in normal society they completely destroy the family. We need to understand that that's a social engineering. It's a psyop. Now, one of the things that I was concerned about as I was doing some research today, we have about 70 or 700,000 sworn police officers in the United States. And the number seems a little low to me, New York in itself. And so as I researched into that, I found out that actually about 1 million are private contractors. Now, what that means, that since they're a private contractor, they don't even need to be U.S. citizens in order to be in those positions. So in reality, what we have is about 1 million mercenaries in this country that have assumed positions within law enforcement. Now, when we look at Afghanistan, there's about 200,000 private so-called soldiers, which are mercenaries. Now, that's an alarming number. We need to understand that we have boots on the ground, both from the Soviet, both from China, and don't believe the stuff that you hear about the Soviets and Putin and all this other stuff. I've seen enough video of Putin with his reptilian eyes to know that the whole thing's a scam. We know that ISIS is a creation out of the United States and Israel, and because of that, this is the tactic that the plan that has been in place to use Muslims to overthrow countries is being forced down our throats here. So just understand that along with the billion plus 2 billion hollow point rounds that are distributed all over the United States, that these 1 million private contractors, along with those that are already in camps throughout the United States, can replenish their ammunition, their firearms with the ammunition that's been stored. And so we have Walmarts, we have these other stores or shopping malls that have been closed down because of the economy, and they're using them as storage areas. People, just get ready. Regardless of what side of the fence you're on, just understand that the goal is to completely remove us. And we also have to look at the fact that the intelligence budget, 70% of it goes into private contractors. Pretty bad stuff. All right. Well, Julie, I'm going to bring you on. I know you got some things, as usual, and I've just kind of went here and there a little bit to get everyone up to speed where I've been looking at. Oh, by the way, I just finished using the scanning devices that I got to look for implants, chips, microchips, RFID chips, anything like that. And I decided to go out and test it on the power meters to see if they were smart meters. And sure enough, there's what I refer to as data bursts. I talked about that the other day, that you can hold on to memory, you can get the data, put it in memory. The military uses this. So when they do a reconnaissance or they do something that is a secret mission, they'll go in, they'll do their observation, they'll record everything. Then when a satellite flies over, they'll give a data burst, a beep. So it's only for a second or half a second. That data goes up to the satellite, and as the satellite goes overhead, they can download as it gets to the other part of the world, like to the Pentagon or whatever they do. And so that way, if you're trying to coordinate or trying to radio track, it's impossible. If you've only got a transmission of a half a second, I've done a lot of radio foxhounding. That's what they call it. It's quite fun, and I've been trained too for looking for downed planes, so I am very familiar with it. And so that's what these meters are doing. They're doing data bursts. And it's interesting because these are offices, and so there isn't Samsung TVs. The new TVs are smart TVs, and they're communicating with your smart meter. And the information from there is data burst over to the smart meter, and the smart meter, having a high-powered transmitter that can go 30 miles, then bleeps it out to whoever's going to be receiving it. So I have confirmed that I do have smart meters, and data is being sent out from them. And then, Julie, I think you've got smart meters. I'll be sending you the equipment that I bought, and you'll be able to check that out for yourself. So just wanted to update you on that. So go ahead, Julie. What do you got for us?
Well, yeah, and I'm really glad I'm getting that, because I know we do have a smart meter, And there's no telling what else. And I think I said this Monday night, I guess people didn't really hear me, but I am not utilizing my phone. And so if you're texting me on my phone, you're not going to get a response, okay? You're not. So don't bother, because right now I have my phone, the line and the whole thing being worked on because someone has been on my line. My phone starts all by itself playing YouTube videos. I can't turn it off. It's impossible to turn it off. Turn it on, it comes right back on. Turn it off, comes on. Turn it off, comes on. So a lot of stuff's been going wonky with it, meaning someone else has control. Buttons are just being pushed randomly while it's sitting on the counter. So I have that being looked into right now. So if you're texting me and you don't hear back from me, this is my second time to warn you. That's why, because I'm not using that phone until they fix it. So that's what's going on. And secondly, this stuff that you're, when you were telling me how you were using these things, and then we have someone that you actually have sent one to see if he could check, whatever. And he actually did find something. The thing that I want to tell people, Scott's like a genius in the technology world. I mean, the guy made a taser weapon when he was 5 years old out of a car battery and a lamp. I mean, this is what he did, and what have you. So right now he is in the process of not only putting equipment where he can send things to certain people to have them track or test themselves, but he's building things. He's right now looking into how he's going to do this. So any help financially that you can give him, please do this, because not only you could possibly end up being tracked or targeted, because the more you speak out in your life about Jesus or anything else against the government, you're going to become a target. So what he's doing right now with the technology he's working on is to help you guys to be able to, if you are a target, to get help, if you become a target, to get help. So please send him your donation so that he can do this. This is not a cheap deal. Although he does work on the cheap, I'm amazed at what he can build for how little he can do it. I mean, he really is quite the genius. I can't even relate to that, but he actually does do very good work. So please help him. And secondly, when you were talking about the Orlando thing, if everybody remembers, I tried to get the 911 calls for that night. And any other time I could call any state, any county, any city, and I could listen to 911 calls for the whole night, And that's for journalists and whoever, to listen to these things, to know what happened. Well, another guy also tried, and so he said, well, I'm going to call the company and find out. So I'm like, cool. So what turns out is the head of the company goes, well, it just coincidentally so happened from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. we had no servers or no whatever, made up a whole story. And he goes, I know that seems like a coincidence. And, of course, this guy is going, yeah, what a coincidence. Well, I have since been trying to get those 911. I want those recordings. And as of today, Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, who has no business, none whatsoever, and if you're listening or you do listen, Loretta Lynch, you're going to hell, because I happen to know you're a reptilian. And secondly, you have no legal right whatsoever to do what you did. She has said she's scrubbed. 12 to 3 a.m. they've been scrubbed. Well, you can't scrub something that didn't happen, Loretta Lynch. Okay? It didn't happen. No one called 911 because the whole thing was planned. So you don't scrub what didn't happen. This is their way of covering up the hoax. And she has no right to do it in the first place. So that's one thing down I can't get. Okay, then I did hear an interview with a high school friend of Angel Colon, who went to school with him. He's one of the supposed victims, alleged victims. And the problem I had with that interview is the guy said, Angel Colon said he got shot in the hand. Well, I just watched him on a news feed that he's grabbed the table with his hands to pull himself up in the wheelchair to the table, shaking hands with the very hand he supposedly got shot in. Not a Band-Aid, not a scratch, not a nada to either one of his hands. So you said you got shot in the hand, Angel, and I'm wondering why you don't even have a Band-Aid on your hands and you're using your hands to talk and do all kinds of stuff and right in front of the camera and you can see there's nothing on your hands. So that's another lie that has been told along with Tiara Parker, who, by the way, Parker equals 33 in gematria. She got shot from the front through the back, and she literally, on the left side, she literally raises her arm all the way up and leans over. And I had news people, I was cut open on my rib cage in 2 places. And I will tell you now, I couldn't even sit down, and it was only like an 1.5 inch incision. I couldn't even sit down and get up by myself from the trauma just of a surgery, much less she was hit with a, by the way, I found out it was not a 223. She got hit, listen, I'm going to get a video. I'm going to have you put it on your website, Scott, because I want people to see the weapon that he supposedly had. I want you to see what this weapon does. With the rounds, the very rounds that supposedly were in those weapons, when you see what these weapons do, and there's no way she would even have a side. She would have had flesh blown completely off of her. She would be in not multiple surgeries and reconstruction of her side. The whole thing is absolutely insane, and it's sick. And once again, for anybody that's new, when I took the letters SAC for Special Agent in Charge of this whole investigation, and the guy's name is Paul Weisopal, I immediately knew that was a made-up name, Weisopal. And if you take those letters and you rearrange them, you get perfectly spelled out, all you see was a psyop. Okay? What are the chances of that? So if you're a new listener, go back and listen to Friday's show, and then Saturday, and you'll see that I presented a very good case against it. In fact, I had one listener from another radio station, I think Watchman's Cry, who listened to the Friday show, and he said that after listening, without a doubt, it put any doubts to rest that he had. He knew, in fact, with all the information I presented, it was, in fact, a hoax. So, and I'm telling you, no one got shot, no one got killed. The whole thing is a hoax. And these people will go off to some other place, and the ones that got killed, and they will pop up again as crisis actors in different things. You'll see them again. 2 people, Allison Parker, who was supposedly killed in the Virginia Tech shooting, I just saw her the other day on television at a microphone at an event in a park. So I just saw her. She's not dead. She's actually back at it again somewhere else. So that's what they do, and they think you're so stupid that you're not going to notice, okay? And mostly you don't. And I don't think it's because you're stupid. I think it's because you're busy. See, you know one thing I started thinking about, Scott? A lot of people... We I've read the studies. I had a testimony from a major player in the medical and psychological world who said that it is true that the IQ of people in America has completely slumped, and people are not as smart as they were, done by design. Food, additives, fluoride, chemicals in the air, things are being sprayed, and it's actually meant to lower your IQ, just like Hitler did, and it actually has worked, okay? But if you take that scenario and you bombard people with false information in the news constantly, and media constantly just, all kinds of perversion, all kinds just crazy stuff on the media. Then you bust the economy to the point that people have to have second and third jobs or whatever. So these people are so busy just trying to eat, just trying to pay the rent, that they don't have time to pay attention to anything. They just don't. And I think that's a lot of it. I've actually heard that from several people, Scott, that they don't have time. That they're like, well, I can't even keep up with my kids and my job. I had to take a second job now. And, you know, so I think that is probably one of the worst things, or one of the biggest contributors to the reason why people don't know what's going on, is the economy and the need to have to take a second job or work more hours. So, you know, and, you know, on the Christian subject, I have to present to the unbelievers, too, that I always say Christians are not, you know, that's not where Jesus is, okay? Jesus doesn't run around in that circle, trust me, because people have been burned by the churches. Well, that's because Jesus isn't there, not there. But I will give you another example. There's a man who's the head of the Religious and Ethics Commission for the Southern Baptist Convention. Now, he was in D.C. He is the most powerful official, okay, in the Southern Baptist Convention, and he was a minister, by the way. Do you know, I'm going to repeat his comment. He is taking money from your tithes. If you do a Baptist church, if you're in any Baptist church, he's taking money from the tithes, all the tithes they collect, and a portion of your money is now going to building mosques. He said, and I quote, "We have to show these people love. We need to help them and show them we love them by building their mosque, and we need to pay for it." So now if you are tithing to a Baptist church, and I have told you many times to get out, and you don't now, well, you know, it's on you, brother, whatever. But they're building mosques. Now, the guy, a flabbergasted Baptist member, said to him, well, why don't we just start building witches' temples and satanic churches? I mean, I'm sure they'd enjoy the help and the financial contributions to have witches and the satanic churches built. He said, well, why don't we just start funding that? He said, you know what? That's a splendid idea, and I think we should do that. So there you go, Scott. Russell Moore, that's his name, Southern Baptist Convention. So now they're taking a percentage of the tithes to the Baptist churches, and they're building mosques. So you are getting tithes, you are actually paying, and you are actually participating in the building of satanic buildings to a satanic god. And I have news for you. If you say you believe in Jesus, you better get out, because you're going to be held responsible for that. But I cannot believe that, and he now is saying that it's a splendid idea that they should start helping the witches and the Satanists build their temples. Scott, what do you say, you know?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I tried to bring deliverance into the church for all these years, and basically, was stoned and set on fire. And in reality, deliverance sets people free. So obviously, the church wanted to stay in bondage, and in that bondage is going to be making bad choices. Churches are making bad choices. Now, we need to remember that the Baptists in that sector actually came out of the Masonic Lodge, and the Masonics also hail certain things that come from Islam in their beliefs and in their ceremonies. So, why not, right? The half moons and everything else, the swords, all of that. But again, it just shows that it goes beyond stinking thinking. This is an attempt, or it's going to, unfortunately, it'll be successful because we've read the book of Revelation, that these things that are being done is one more straw to break the camel's back. When evil or the sins of evil have been implemented in all angles, in all directions, then it implodes. And so again, this is the one last ditch effort to take down anything that may be of Christianity whatsoever. So there you go.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And then I did have a story sent to be my assistant up in Michigan, and I wanted to read this because I want you people to understand. I have told you and told you and told you on the other show, I am from California, and I'm quite versed in the matter of music stars and stars. I used to delve around in L.A. in the Garmick District, and I did a lot of, running around in those areas, and I do know a person or two who had contracts and were offered contracts to take their career to the next level and did not do it because of what they were going to have to do. But if you are a young person and you are seeking to be famous, I'm going to tell you, as a former practitioner of the occult in California, you will have to become a first-level witch. Okay, that's the requirement. You will have to at least become a first-level witch. That's just to even be considered, okay? And after that, you're going to have to kill a lot of infant babies, drink their blood, eat their heart. Yes, you will. That's the way it works. A lot of sacrifices. And you will be eating feces and drinking urine at parties because that's what you have to do. Think me strange, all you want, but that's the way it works in good old Hollywood, okay? I will give you an example of people who have gotten in. They were human. They weren't, reptilians or whatever, and they got in. And you have to sign a contract in your own blood. And this contract says that when Lucifer comes calling, you're going to be taken. That's what it is. You have to agree to that. And you literally say the words that you will sell your soul. You actually have to deny Jesus Christ. Now, I'll ask you a question. If Jesus Christ is not real, if he's just a figment of somebody's imagination, can you tell me why the Satanists which is one and the same of the Illuminati, can you tell me why these Satanists make the person say that they renounce Jesus Christ? If he's a nobody and he's a fictional character, then why do you have to say that? I'm going to explain to you why. Anyone who sells their soul has to be aware of the truth. So they have a Bible, a King James Bible, and you have to read that Bible. And you have to see that there is a Lucifer, there is a Jesus, there is a God the Father. You have to see it. You have to purposely make the choice to one side or the other. Now, like I said, if Jesus is a fictional character, tell me why in Satanism you have to say that. Okay? I'm talking to a former witchcraft person, practitioner. Okay? So that's if you want to be in this game over here of fame and fortune, you will do it or you will not be famous. Will not have your fortune that way. There's an actress named Selma Blair. She was literally carried out of an airplane on a stretcher and sent to a Los Angeles hospital after a breakdown where she screamed about an abusive man who acts like a mind control handler. She was, Selma Blair's flight was coming back from a Cancun vacation with her ex-boyfriend and their now 4-year-old son. It turned into a bizarre nightmare when she started shouting to fellow passengers about a mysterious man who abuses her. He said, end quote, "He burns my privates. He won't let me eat or drink. He beats me. He's going to kill me," unquote. Okay? So if you think that this is not true and this is not real, this satanic Hollywood, let me tell you, this is the devil's real, honey. You see those people out there, throwing up the goat head? Mm-hmm. It's real. And these people have to swear allegiance to him. And these girls and these men are taken into what's called MK Ultra mind control. And I want you to start looking and pay close attention to people's albums. I want you to look at their CD covers. Okay, I want you to start looking because you're going to see at one point Britney Spears was in the Mickey Mouse Club, and oh boy, she was so cute. She grew up, and all of a sudden, at some point, you see her release an album with butterflies on it. You see her wearing butterflies. Britney Spears had a breakdown, if you'll remember, and she was bashing cars in and shaving her head. That was because she's been MK Ultra'd to the point her programming was breaking down, okay? These people are literally abused, satanic ritual abuse, okay? That is mind control, MK Ultra mind control, and this is what's done to them, okay? And I had demons who would do this to me at night, come and absolutely terrorize me when I could no longer feel my body and didn't know where it was anymore. As I tried to go to sleep, they would come and terrorize me at night. Absolutely just had me so afraid that my heart wanted to stop. This is what they do, okay? And these people are caught up in this. And believe me, she had a choice. She did not have to sign that contract. But because she did, now this is her life. And what she's saying is very real. She has a handler. Probably her ex-boyfriend is the handler. Okay? And this is the way it works. So if you think that all that mess is not real, you better think again. Because it's very real. And this lady and this young lady is a perfect example of when that programming goes sideways, they end up in the hospital. Scott, I know you have something to say about that.
Well, let me bring up an incident that I know of personally, and that there was a pastor who was at the pulpit on stage, and he was starting to teach about demons. And he had what they later tried to blame it as a global infarction of the brain, and they literally had to carry him off the pulpit or off the stage in a stretcher and take him to the hospital. He had a complete breakdown. He was holding on to his notes for his sermon, yelling and screaming, "These are my notes. Why did they not make any sense?" Now, there's two things that can take place here. One, he could have been attacked by demons. But there's also some other things going on that now I know more about Monarch, that in my opinion, that there was again a breakdown in the programming. And I'm sorry, that's what I see. Now, with the technology that's out there today, it's one of the reasons I'm putting the equipment, is that you can be assured that these people are also chipped. And anything, everything they've done is basically fallen angel technology. Now, even SRAs can go wrong. They can have flashbacks, they can commit suicide, they can do all these things. So it's not an exact science. So you'll see things that go wrong. Now, I've mentioned about handlers. I've taught on that before. And those, the black-eyed children issue that was going on a couple of years ago, well, I can assure you that there was always a handler when the black-eyed children were being seen. I can assure you that if you're dealing with one demon in an individual, and they've got multiple personalities, most likely always do, that there's a handler in the spirit realm, a familiar spirit, one that's handling the traffic, so to speak. And, they're also able to assess the situation because they're in the spirit and they can see those things, and so they can be ahead of the game. In fact, that's one of the problems with handlers in the spirit, because they can always be a step ahead of you. This is why, as professing, bondservants of Jesus Christ, that we need to go through deliverance to get these things out of us, so as we're ministering, as we're moving forward, as we're doing the things that we're called to do, that we're truly hearing from the Holy Spirit. Because otherwise you can hear from demons and do things that are not positive. But, we're going to see a lot more of this. And that actress, that's not the first time. You were talking about some of the others. This goes on all the time. Johnny Depp. Do you remember when he collapsed on the, I guess it was on the Hollywood Boulevard Strip there? He actually went down, and they set him back up again, and he went down again because his clone or whatever that was was having a breakdown. And that's the other thing, Julie. Clones. You want to bring us to speed on that? That they're not necessarily here forever. They wear out. Are you on mute?
Absolutely, they do. Yeah, they absolutely do. They wear out, and they only last so long. Now, I'm going to tell you something about this burnout. It's very weird because I noticed that they started to not last as long. I don't know why. I still haven't gotten the skinny on that. I'm trying to get to someone who knows about that stuff so I can get the skinny on it. But he said, last time I talked to him, he said, or he actually gave me the information. He said that they were lasting like 9 days, and they were having to pump out more. That they just, now I don't know why. And you know, sometimes you make a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. I think that's kind of maybe what's happening. But it kind of made me laugh when he said that, because I started thinking, if any of you guys believe in Jesus and Lucifer, I'm going to tell you, I know that Lucifer and the demons are real because I used to call them in, and you know, I had dealings with them. But you know, Scott, if Lucifer's program is messed up to the point that his clones aren't lasting like 9 days, that's kind of funny, because God made me. And isn't it? People don't think how wonderfully and fearfully and awesomely that you're made. You may not think that because you're like, well, the angels have more power than we do, and we're, you know. But let me tell you, if you just look at your heart, just the heart, you look at a picture of a heart and how it works. 1% off here, 1% off there, even a little tiny part of percentage, and you and me, we would not be talking right now. Okay, I mean, your body is sheer precision. There isn't a camera in the world that can match your eyes, even now, with all their technology. And so I think it's funny that even though Lucifer has all this technology and he thinks he's so darn smart, his clones are croaking he told me 9 days. They're lasting about 9 days. So they're having to pump these clones out like mad, like crazy. So there you go, Scott.
Yeah, you know, when you look at the DNA, when you look at the structure of us, that the human eye itself and its complexity is absolutely amazing. I'm still blown away with what eagles can do. I mean, they can be a mile up and they can spot a mouse and come right onto it immediately. I mean, that's incredible. So when we look at what God has done, and then try to see what Satan's trying to duplicate, you know, he's not doing such a good job, I guess, but you know, that's also part of altering us in our thinking, that when we see counterfeits, we accept them as the truth. And unfortunately, the doctrines in the church are kind of the same thing. These things come from Satan, and the church has embraced them as if they're coming from God. So there you go.
Yeah, and if you have not studied this stuff yet, I also wanted to let you know there's a creation, and I know you've probably seen these on television in like little programs and stuff that's talked about them. I want you to understand something. What you're seeing on these tech shows that they're introducing, maybe nightly news or wherever, that is not what I'm talking about. Okay, I want you to take that technology and I want you to multiply it times, 500,000, all right? I see these robotoids on TV, and they're like, oh, you can get a doll, a robotoid doll thing, and, it'll talk to you, and you can have sex with it, and you can do all these things, and you can tell it's not real. It even talks. There are ones that talk, and they actually are programmed with emotions and all of that, but you can still tell it's a robot. No matter how much it looks like a person, you can tell. But what I want to let you know is that technology that you're seeing, the reason they're rolling it out right now is because they want you to think that that's where they're at. They want you to think that that's their latest science. I'm here to tell you, friends, listen to me. You could meet a robotoid that's an exact copy of you, and your friends could see that and interact with it, and it'll be talking just like you, look like you, sound like you, down to the moles, wherever they are, whatever. They have what's called robotoids, and they're models on the runway. They look real. They absolutely look real. But the thing that they like about those is they don't have a 9-day, span. Okay? But they do look real. And I happen to know of a person who, his family, heavy in the Masons for many generations, the last time I heard, he said it is completed now that every member of his immediate family have now been replaced with robotoids. They are not his parents anymore and brothers and sisters. He will go visit, and he immediately knew something was wrong. And as he started digging into their Masonic, and by the way, he was the only one that went opposite of the Mason thing, didn't want anything to do with it. So he now knows his whole family are robotoids. Now, how do you think he feels? I mean, no one else can tell. Oh, no, that's your mom. No, that ain't my mom. But it is. It looks just like her, acts like her, the whole 9 yards. And how that works is they can actually program that thing to, I don't know if you know this, but your DNA can actually be programmed or put into a third helix, that third DNA, and they code it with gold so they have plenty of room to write program code on there, and that actually is a part of the robotoid. Do you understand? It bleeds, okay? It actually has the DNA of the person. We're talking miry clay and iron. Do you understand? This is the transhumanism, clay and iron, where a person, a human or fleshly DNA structure is now merged with technology, and that's what they are. And by the way, folks, they are more than real. You're going to find, when things start hitting the fan, there's going to be a lot of people you thought you knew, and they're either going to be amphibious, reptilian, insectian. Their cloaks are going to come off, their masks are going to come off, and they're going to be robotoids that are not. They're going to try to kill you. They're not even your parent anymore, or your sibling, or your cousin. Okay? And I will tell you, it's right at 50% of the population is not human. They're hybrids and or clones and or robotoids. So it sounds like it's science fiction far out, but I got to tell you, it's true. And this comes from people who are actually living through these things right now that know what's going on, and they are speaking out a little bit here and there so that they don't end up, in an alley. So there you go, Scott.
Well, plastic surgery for spies, so to speak, has actually been around a very long time. The British, the MI5 and the MI6, have used that. And in fact, I still have to subscribe to Paul McCartney potentially not being the original one. There certainly is a lot of information that tells us that. Now, I think that's just a case of someone that's had the plastic surgery to take his place, and whatever the circumstance is, that just shows that from the early 60s that they did have that. And, of course, they didn't let the public know it, and it wasn't until plastic surgery became something that, was brought out from the Hollywood stars. But, again, I can remember, in the late 80s when I was working for Motorola, that a Florida doctor had just received the patent for merging human flesh with silicon chips. And so he was actually growing brain matter in a petri dish, and, it was for artificial intelligence. And again, you mentioned, how they just show us a little bit of technology, and what they're really doing is keeping the bigger part away from us. That trickled down. Again, the space shuttle, that thing was outdated years before they even unveiled it to us. And so that's what we have to move around on? No. So, another thing, I noticed that there's a pattern with people that I've worked with over the years, and when I say that, I'm talking about deliverance and praying for them, that they seem to have places of their memory missing that had some relation with the military. And I've now come across a couple that supposedly were from the Area 51, and they only know that they worked there because of a spouse that knew they used to go there every day, that they have retirement checks that indicate from that particular department, but yet they can't remember a thing. And so I have, suspicions that potentially those that come out of these programs, come out of these agencies, these departments, that they themselves may not exactly be that person. I was joking, Julie, and I told you that time I went to the bank and the teller was using, instead of typing in, he was using the digital signature of himself to run the check through. And he mentioned that it hadn't been reading it all day and that he had to punch it in manually. And I said, well, maybe you're not you. And, of course, he didn't understand what I was talking about. But I think there's a lot more of that out there than what most people would suspect. And so I have to agree with you. And what I was indicating about that particular pastor, who knows what that situation is, because he was actually operating a mega church. And there were a lot of things that were wrong about that church. Now that I can look back at it, I can see that potentially the direction that they were trying to take the Christian community at that point was far away from being delivered whatsoever from the issues that they had. Everything was secular. Bringing in psychology, that's another thing. I talked about the DSM-4 and the DSM-5, the psychologist manual for diagnosing, particular behaviors, that they were written to cover up behaviors that normally could have been spotted or at least brought up as to the cause. Instead, they've brought them or written them in so that if you're dealing with, let's say gang stalking, then you're considered schizophrenia. If you have certain behaviors where you're absolutely fed up and frustrated, then you have anger management issues. And so, quickly what do? They put them on medications. And so that also explains what's happening to our returning military troops. Julie, when you and I first started doing the shows over a year ago, one of the first subjects that we talked about was the manifestations on the battlefield for the troops. And I feel led to bring that up again, because I think that that's going to be taking place with what's happening here, that whether it's a false flag or an incident that may be, where someone finally lost it, in either case, that if you're on the battlefield and you have a demon or a fallen angel or hybrid or whatever manifest in front of you, you can imagine how that would mess with your head. And then the fact that you weren't able to report that or at least let anyone know later, I think explains one of the reasons why around 25 military personnel a day commit suicide. What if that were to happen in the public, Julie? What would you think would happen?
I believe because people have been conditioned to believe all that is fake, that it's not real, people would literally start killing each other. And what I do know for a fact, Scott, and this is something, and I'm sure, you've probably seen this in your exorcism ministry. I bet you've seen this. Here's, folks, let me tell you what's going to happen, because it happens now. And believe me, when it happens on a mass level, you can only imagine when police officers are used to seeing, well, it's just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. Well, I'm telling you, he turned into a lizard. Just the facts. We got a 5150 here. We need a county mental health. I mean, come on, But I'm telling you, when someone is possessed, they can literally, a human, not a reptilian, they can transform. And they can look like a demon or an animal. So, Scott, imagine not just these things that can manifest into a material, matter that you could touch, physical form, but they can actually do this to a person that you love. And if everything is going absolutely ballistically sideways in the country, and you know how we believe it's going to be, can you imagine that that person might kill their own family member because they think they've turned into this monster and that really wasn't their family member? It's like, that's not him, it's somebody else. It's one of those things that's running around outside. And they kill their, child or whoever, only to find out it was just a demon that literally took on the look of the demon and superimposed over that child. I mean, they do it now, so why wouldn't they do it then? And I do believe that all of these demons, fallen angels, will take a physical form. They will be able to manifest into a physical form. And folks, I'm going to tell you something. You may think that the dead people you're talking to, if you're doing that, are dead people, but I used to do that, and I was very well known for my abilities, and I was very good. I helped law enforcement at the federal level, with missing children cases. I'm going to tell you something. Right now, they're not dead people, These are demons. And I will tell you the one quickest way to find out if I'm telling you the truth. The next time one of those dead people shows up, I want you to say, in the name of Jesus, you show who you really are. And because the Lord Jesus is going to say, she really wants to know. See, he can see your heart. And the minute you say that, that thing is going to absolutely unmask and take off like it's going to be totally, terrified. And when you see how absolutely vile, you can watch any horror movie you want and see any of these character things that they, put out in the movies. I'm going to tell you something. Pick the worst character that you've ever seen in a movie. Predator, I don't know, pick the worst. And when you see a demon, it is absolutely 1,000,000 times magnified in the ugly, vile, physical description. And then something else happens. When you see them, not only do the physical attributes make you absolutely terrified, if you are not expecting it, let me tell you something else. What you're going to see, and your spirit, your soul, your eyes are going to take in, and you're going to see the most evil, black, just abyss, like unending black, evil abyss. I'm just not kidding. And you will, people are going to have heart attacks when they see this. So take it from somebody who used to talk to these things. Folks, if you're doing that, you do what I said, but you do it because you really want to know the truth. Believe you me, those masks will come off. But, Scott, I do believe that they are going to absolutely transform the form of loved ones in order, out of panic and fear, to have people killing each other, and then being left with, can you imagine what would happen to the person if they killed their kid because they thought it was a monster and not really their kid? Can you imagine what they would suffer after that?
Well, we're already seeing these cases that mothers are actually killing their children. One of the last ones was that the mother was hearing voices, and the voices was telling the mother that the one particular child was actually demon-possessed and that she needed to drown the child. So during bathing time, she held it under the water and sat on it until it was lifeless. Now, when someone comes out of that bewitching, that vexing, and then realize what they had done, they'll literally emotionally implode within themselves. So that's a two-way street. I'll tell you, the 1950s and the 1960s, robots were brought into sci-fi movies. If anyone remembers Robbie the robot, the first one that they had, which was an incredible mechanical feat, even though there was a man inside of it to do that. and then we had Lost in Space. And we come along with the movie Stepford Wives. You might remember that a couple of years ago. And it's interesting because Nicole Kidman, you know, I've kind of watched her off and on. You know, her father was under investigation, and a warrant was put out for him for child trafficking, child molestation. He was one of the ones that was actually supplying children to the rich and elite for, remember Julie, we're talking about this when they hunt children down, and some of the elite actually have their penises as records up on the wall, you know, like horns of an animal they've taken. And then, of course, he mysteriously had this heart attack when he was on the run. All of these people come from a very bizarre, very strange environment. And I'm also seeing a pattern coming out of Australia, too, by the way, which I have great concerns about. But to not believe any of this, to not at least see that this stuff is coming at us in such volume, and not to say, hey, there's something wrong, I don't know what else to say. You know, what do you say? We keep moving forward and doing what we're doing in hopes that we reach a few, because, you know, when you truly realize what's really going on, I mean, not the first time I did, when I realized how badly the government had been taken over, it was very depressing. I can remember just having a hard time even get out of bed for like 6 weeks. And then to realize that people that we know, and believe me, I'm here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and everybody's under suspicion now. And Julie and I talk about this all the time. The stuff that's going on around me, just like she's running the numbers for Orlando, I mean, it's getting weird. And so everyone's under suspicion. And I'm sorry. You know, I've got a guy in the parking lot here that has a pyramid with the capstone indication that he's number one at the top, and that the reptilian eye, which I thought was first a womb, but I mean, how does that happen? How do I have that in my parking lot here? So, I mean, you know, so what happens next? What do you think happens next, Julie? What do you think?
Well, I'm running the numbers right now, and I'm looking at every article, and thank you to the listeners in around Texas over here that sent me an article about a shabby to chic, you know, housing fixer-upper program and what happened there. Like I said, when I read articles and I listen to news and I watch the people and what they're wearing, how they're talking, words they're using, because of my past involvement in the occult, I see things and hear things that are not what the normal people see and hear. It's another language that's being spoken. And if you look up any writings by Manly P. Hall, you will see that he talked about this language being spoken using symbols and numbers and what have you. And it was the secret language of the occultic, the Masons, you know, between each other and the Knights Templar and what have you. So that's what I do. And I am seeing a very disturbing outlook right now, and I'm checking into several more stories, but I'm seeing things linking that I don't like. And I'm also this movie you said, I asked you if there was a movie about anything, because I don't even know what comes out. You read more than I do, and I mean, you're out and about, and you know, see the movie theater, and you can see what's on the marquee and, you know, whatever. I don't get out and about as much as you do, and I live in the country. So I asked you today, I said, have you seen any movies that have to do with Big Ben, the clock tower being destroyed? Have you seen anything like that? If you have, when did you see it? And here you are going, well, it came out. I'm going, when? So, see, the reason I asked that question is because I know of something that's going to happen, and that's going to be obliterated. I already know for sure that this is going to happen, and a few other things that are going to happen along with it, but I have to connect it now to some other things. So that's what I'm working on, And I actually, if anybody's interested, I mean, I don't want to bore anybody with the gematria stuff, but I wanted to show you guys that I can actually trace Barack Obama back to Akhenaten. I can put him back there. And I want to tell you something else. I don't know if you know this, but Nimrod, Gilgamesh, the body of, has been found. You do know that, right? They have him in custody. They do DNA. Why do you think the Egyptians preserved, and back in those days they preserved the organs like they did? Because they knew at some future point, because they were not human, they were hybrids. All these Egyptians, you know why they had the elongated heads like Nefertiti and those things? Because they were Solipsi-Rai, or Ra-A, they were Solipsi-Rai hybrids. That's where they came from. They were hybrid humans, or the human DNA mixed with Solipsi-Rai, and that's how they came to look like that. Okay, and they also mixed them with the reptilian DNA, insectian DNA, and Denisovanian DNA. And I want you to go back into your history. In Egyptian history, there was an Ant-Man. Can anybody tell me about any superhero movies you've seen or heard of called the Ant-Man? Did you know there's a real Ant-Man back in Egyptian hieroglyphic art? And I know all about him. A real Ant-Man. Okay? Also, there was a being that had a dog head, Anubis, for real, really existed. These are all things that really did exist back in those days. They were hybrids. So if I can show you proof, I mean, I got a very raving review from people over the Friday show that they did not know if it was a hoax or not, kind of thought it might be, but after one show, Friday, they were able to say without a doubt that they felt like I presented enough evidence that it absolutely proves that it was. So if I can do that with you guys, and I can show you in history, I'm able to show you the connection between Akhenaten, Nimrod, and Gilgamesh, and present-day stuff going on. And if I can show you that, and it's also going to link in the Bible, you guys, because, see, they use biblical text too, which a lot of non-believers don't know. But the occult uses biblical text. The skull and bones number is 322. Why is it 322? It references Genesis 322. And that's where it talks about, oh no, they've partaken of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Oh no, if they come and eat of the tree of life, they will find immortality. And they couldn't, and they'll, they won't be able to die, and they're going to have evil, and so that was what that references, and that's what they've been after ever since. But that's the kind of stuff that is going on right now, and you're going to see how just an Ant-Man movie, just a harmless Ant-Man movie, I can lock him in to past history through gematria, architecture, the whole thing. And why you can see that is going to happen again. I'm not kidding. These things are already alive in underground military bases. They have brought back these kings of old. They have brought these things back. Anubis, there are many of those creatures that have been spotted. I got a testimony on that from a woman who was driving actually up in your area, Scott, north of you, and passed a military vehicle. And as she did, she just glanced up, and every one of the soldiers had dog heads, dog faces and dog heads. Scared, but she almost had a wreck. So, what they're actually making animal-human hybrids right here in the United States. Chimera is no big deal. They're talking about it on the news. So we know they're doing it. But I can, I want to kind of show you guys, because what I see in the gematria I'm doing right now, I'm seeing a lot of connections to the month of July, month of August, the month of September, and I'm not really liking it. And I can see the connections to back in time it's all connecting back in time. And it's weird, Scott, how this happened, but the back in time is connecting to present day, and it's the numbers. The numbers are doing it. I can't, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I know that everything that you've been bringing to us has revealed to a T. And so you were talking also about things coming. Do you have anything that you want to mention about that?
About what did you say, Scott?
About any potential false flags or anything that's coming. Do you have anything that you...
I do think you're going to see this whole London thing, that movie. I know for a fact they're going to do that, and I'm working on right now numbers as to when, because I know they're going to tell us when. I just have to try to beat them to the punch. So any news articles about any kind of public shootings or public, even no matter how small it looks to you, please send me the article. But that whole thing in London, that is going to happen, and sooner rather than later. And I also found a link when I was doing this, and one of the number sequences that I did, in terms of English, it meant London, England, no food, no sex, no water, and it was what's to come. And that was actually what came up in a number sequence that I did, connected to a name. So, and then I also can tell you that they're priming up to off a presidential candidate or Obama. Somebody's fixing to get hit, all right? I know that's what they're going to do, because you can't keep flagging that in these news stories and having these guys jump up and run to go get on the stage with Trump and do something to him. These are all acted out. They're not real. These people are actors. They're doing that to mess with your head. Oh, look, Trump is the opposition. He's not in their club. He's not one of them. Bull crap. He's a nice Templar. Okay? It's the same thing as being a Mason. All right? They're all in their little club. But what I foresee is they're going to do I don't think either one of them is going to get killed. In fact, I don't even think they're really going to be shot. But they're going to make it look like one of them gets shot, and because what they want to do is they want to completely set you and me completely off into, or this is no offense to you if you're black, okay, because I'm Hispanic. I'm not white, all right? So my point is they want to send black people over the edge. Now, I'm going to tell you from what I've seen with this Black Lives Matter, a lot of African-American people are taking the bait. You're taking the bait. And I'm telling you, stop doing it. They want you to hate police officers and white people. Well, I have news for you. I'm not white. I'm not even part white. And I love everybody that's I don't care what color you are, black, white, yellow, I don't care. Okay, I got friends from all over the world that represent Nigeria, that represent all types of people. So stop taking the bait with this Black Lives Matter. Obama has done his best to segregate and anger the black population, and he's done a really good job. And they've got cops they've brought in that are not human, my friends, not human, and some that work in this, right along with this agenda, and they purposely wait until they can find a black person. They'll target somebody and make sure it gets on camera. They want you to tape it with your cell phone and for it to go viral. They want that because they're trying to enrage the black community. Don't fall for it. So this is what I see that they're doing right now. Whether it's Trump or Obama, I got to do more numbers research. But I'm telling you, Scott, I do believe that's what's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked a lot about Trump. And, again, anyone that has a agenda that does not align up with the New World Order is not going to make it as far as he did. It just isn't going to happen. So we just have to understand that everybody there is just one the good cop, bad cop scenario. And, and then there's always the potential that he may be there just to upset the apple cart to make sure that Hillary gets in. Whatever the situation is, I mean, they're going to try and finish what they started. It might be delayed a little bit. I think Obama's way behind the curve from what they've originally tried to do. And it may be one of the reasons he himself might be cloned, whatever. I mean, that one video that we saw, Julie, where he got angry after the news press and he wouldn't kick that door open, is another indication. That, in fact, I think you found out, Julie, that they actually had to remove that particular clone because he was out of control. What do you have on that to bring everyone up to speed?
Yeah, there was, after the inaugural party, when they had the party in the White House, according to my source, who happens to be in on that whole stuff, he flipped out. His clone completely wigged out, and they had to call up the guys in black from below to actually take him out because he was killing people, just shooting and killing people all over the place. He just went off. And he said to this person that I know, he held a weapon, which is what you would call a space alien weapon, is not anything that any of you have ever seen or would even imagine that exists. And he looked at this person in his face and he said, "You humans, you're so weak. You're so pathetic. We are so much more superior to you humans." This is what he said. And he shot people up. So, and by the way, this person that I am talking about was taken as 5 years old and has been sodomized and raped in part of this child trafficking crap for many years, and he has been violated and sodomized by Barack Obama many times. Okay, so this is part of what they do. But yes, he had to be taken out. That happened again in March. Once again, I believe it was March, might have been April, but it happened again. They had to take him out again and get another clone. And did you not see, Scott, when I brought this to your attention to go look, did you not see that the one, I told you which one to look at and then look again, and you could tell they didn't even look alike. Remember that?
Yeah, in fact, the many pictures that I've seen of Barack Obama over the years, we talked about the molds being in different places and hair color and the way everything is just, every time you see a picture of him, it doesn't seem to be the same one. So whatever they're doing, it's not working.
Yeah, this is their cloning is starting to fail. I think it's hilarious that Lucifer thinks he's so smart and he's so brilliant and he can't figure out how to clone somebody, and the clone won't live a full life like a human would. So even with all his technology, he just can't seem to make the grade. He's always coming in second, always coming in, after God. I mean, I tell Lucifer, it must suck to always lose to God. It must suck to always be on the losing end, because he hates it. And I know that he actually has wiped out several people because they have brought those things to his attention, and he was infuriated, and he too will do what Barack Obama did and start taking people out. He gets very angry because it is becoming clearer and clearer that his powers are not as much as he thought they were. I mean, he really, Lucifer has this really total power trip, and he thinks he's all about somebody. And like we read in the holy text of the Bible, where he said, where we're going to look at him and go, that's who was causing all these problems. Oh my goodness, and we will. And so, if you're not a believer, I will just tell you, you can ask. If you truly want to know the truth, if you don't want to know the truth and you're messing around, don't bother. But if you really, really want to know the truth, you can ask out loud in your house. Go by yourself, go where you can be alone, and just say, okay, this girl who used to be involved in the occult says that you're real, so I want to know about the Jesus Christ that's in the book, in the KJV Bible, that one, the one she's talking about. And if you're real, I want to know, and I want to know right now. That's all it takes, and your whole life will completely change. He will show himself. You will know the truth. So, and you know what? People think that Satan lets you do all in Satan's world. Well, we can do whatever, have sex with whoever we want. You know, we can change our genders back and forth. We can do all these things. While you think that you're free and that you're living your life and you're free to do what you want without all these God telling you not to do this and this and this, what you're not seeing is that you're actually taking a rope and you're tying yourself up and you're actually tightening the noose around your neck and you keep on binding yourself with ropes until you're so bound you can't move. And that may not sound like something you understand, but I'm going to tell you, the demonic realm they know that Jesus is real. They know he's real, and the more you do outside of what we're supposed to do, the more you do that, the more demons are allowed to hop right in your flesh and in your soul and reside right there. And as you continue doing this, what will happen is that you literally will be so literally bound, that you will not be able to even think straight. They will take over your mind, your feelings, everything. Scott, you know that's the way they work.
Yeah, I've noticed that there seems to be some type of influence or demonic stronghold with people that are, quote, religious in the mainstream Christian church, that there's some things they're just never going to let go of. And it seems like the older population just is never going to accept the things that we talk about, maybe to a point. You know, I've even seen where the individuals received it, showed, absolute depression over it because they finally figured out what's really going on, and then talked themselves out of it within the next week and moved on as business as usual without even giving it another thought. It's just amazing. Denial is incredible. The different demons that are out there is astronomical. There seems to be a demon for every situation. And I mentioned before, I used to try and keep track of them, and around 500 I just stopped taking note and only sticking to the specific categories of demons. But what we do know, when we look at scriptures, they're unclean spirits, lying spirits, familiar spirits, those spirits of infirmity. So there's different classifications. But what's really interesting is it seems like the Antichrist spirit, a spirit, not is prevalent even more. And I mentioned before with the different hybrids, the different clones and those things. Well, in reality, that's what was taking place like during Enoch time. And those things that died, that since they were an abomination, that their spirits became evil spirits. And so I think there's a regeneration or a adding on to the numbers even today. So and by the way, I think it's Jubilees talks about 90% of them are bound and won't be released until Revelation. So we're actually dealing with the 10% that God allowed to be here for those who were disobedient in their sins to be tormented, basically is what it amounts to. And just think if this is this bad with 10%, just think what another 90% would do. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. And Scott, when you're talking to people, and I fully remember what it was like to not believe. I remember very vividly the feelings that I had before I, knew who Jesus was. And there's a part of you that you just don't want to know. you're just kind of like, you know what, all this and these religious people and all, and they've given this guy Jesus a really bad name, you know, and so they're like, you know, I've met those people as religious people, and I don't like them. And so I always tell people, look, I am not a Christian. Please do not link me with that bunch of yahoos. As we say in the South, they're yahoos. But I am actually, I just love this Jesus guy that came when I called, and he actually taken the time to take care of me and look after me and teach me some things. And I've learned so much from him and the Holy Spirit showing me what the truth is, that if I wouldn't go back to where I was before if he couldn't give me enough. There's not enough money in the world to have me do that. And I will tell you, if you do go ask like I'm telling you to, and you do figure out that he's real, I would urge you to just take that, just stand up and join the army. Because you gotta take a side, dude. You know, in life we always have to pick sides. You know, these people that, oh, we just love everybody and we're so tolerant and we just don't care if they're just doing all these bad things. Let these Muslims in here. Well, I want to tell you a story about a woman who was she was an older woman. She was like in her I think she was like in her late 40s, early 50s, or early 50s. She had a retirement income. And she lived quite nicely, and she did live alone. And bless her heart, you know, she was one of these that believed in the, you know, Muslim and let them in and this and that. So she goes down to one of these refugee centers, and she starts talking about maybe having one come and live in her home. She had a spare room and what have you, and that somebody could live there till they got their life, you know, got straightened out and got a job and whatever. And she wanted to show them how, you know, open she was to having these people in her life and what have you. So there was a gentleman that they suggested, you know, he's just kind of by himself. And so he, you know, she said, okay, well, you know, you can have that spare room and you can, you know, it's kind of that side of the house or whatever, this and that. So the next thing you know, a week later, she's nowhere to be found. He had raped her, literally, horribly, raped her, and he murdered her. And she was found dead in her house. 1 week, she was killed by this thing. Okay? So, as people who believe in Jesus, we are not supposed to take rattlesnakes into our home. You don't do it. These people are demonized, and they're full of demons, and they believe if a woman wears a T-shirt, then she needs to be killed. Chop her head off right there. Kill her. She wore a T-shirt. If she wears a pair of pants, chop her head off. Kill her right there. Okay? We cannot live in the same country with those people. Their political ideologue, their violent political ideologue, which is not a religion, will not go with our Republic of the United States. It doesn't work. So, you know, if you ask him if he's real, let me tell you, he will show you and he will guide you. And if you have the Holy Spirit and you truly understand the truth, you're going to know not to do those things. You're not going to be so tolerant that your family is jeopardized because of your behavior of being so tolerant. You're going to know how far to go. Because, you know, a lot of people, Scott, think that Christians are pushovers and they allow whatever. Hey, you know, I've had people pick on me even before, and I've never been one to retaliate at all. I just my kids would get mad at me. Mom, you just walk away. I said, you know, even before I knew who Jesus was, I still did the turn the other cheek thing. You know, if you come in my house and you break in my house, you're going to die because this is my house. But, you know, this is the way it works. And if you aren't a Christian and you think that, or not a believer, and you think that those people, that bothers you because they don't talk about even defending their families, well, they're wrong, my friend, because the Bible actually tells them that if you don't defend your family, if you don't take care of your family, you're worse than an infidel. And do you know what the Bible says about infidels? They're going to hell. So we are commanded to care for our family, protect our family. Okay, so if you happen to think that's the way that Christians believe, they might, but a true believer and follower of Jesus will not believe that way. There's one thing to being kind and loving, and another thing, letting evil prevail, and that's not okay. But, Scott, if these people are allowed to run roughshod, which is what's happened, you mentioned at the first of the show, we are going to have major problems, and it's not going to take very long for it to escalate into civil war, I fear.
I'm reminded that in the 70s, when Cuba had opened up their prisons and actually allowed a lot of them to flee into the United States, that places like Florida, received a bunch of them. And I can remember this. I think the gal the older one was in Pennsylvania, and she took one of them. It was the same scenario. When they found her a week later, she was all cut up into little tiny pieces. You grab a rattlesnake by the tail, they're going to whip around and bite you. Same thing with a Gila monster. You need to understand what you're dealing with. What was that example where the scorpion was being led across the stream from, I don't know, it was a frog or some reptilian. But anyways, when they got to the other end, the scorpion bit them, and they said, "Why'd you do that?" And they said, "Well, I'm a scorpion. That's what I do." Well, it's the same thing with these people. I think it was a turtle. And so there you go. What do? Because the demonization that we're talking about is actually demon possession. They're not coming back. And we need to understand that there are some people, some groups, some types, that are actually God's enemy. They're not the enemy you have next door that throws dog droppings in your yard. We're talking about something that has sold themselves to the point that they are a threat to society, to children, to the elderly, to anyone that they can take advantage of. Just like the psychopaths that we have in the White House. Barack is extremely evil. He's just evil, and you need to understand when they're that evil, you need to defend yourself. And the situations we're in, we're really here because of the fact that we've allowed it to happen. The churches were programmed to keep the Christians to make them stand down. That was what dispensation was all about. That came from the Zionists. This whole thing was to keep them from being who God intended them to be. Because in reality, if we are doing those things that we're called to be, we wouldn't be in the position we're in. And again, the brainwashing is on. I just sometimes don't even know what to say. And I don't know, Julie. We got about 10 minutes or so. If there's something else you want to bring up before we close, I know we were talking about. I saw the moon was up last night. So again, you might want to remind us what we got going on.
Okay. If you, some of the websites that you can go to are not going to give you the appropriate information. I just want you to know that. I have noticed that people are writing me and they're saying, oh, well, I didn't see any, holidays on their calendar or whatever. I saw, in there and I didn't see it. That is because they don't tell you everything. That's just what they do. They put down some satanic something, I don't know, whatever, and they don't actually tell you the whole thing. But one of the things that happened recently was the June 21st, the summer solstice. Now remember, that's when the fertility goddess gives birth to the Savior, the false Messiah, that guy, So right now they are expecting this year to actually see their Messiah. Okay, they think he's coming. All right, he's coming. So and don't forget that the occult are obsessed with numerology. This is what they do. Okay, and numbering. So it's important to know that the calendar is divided up into 4 13-week sections. So I want you to understand the number 13, okay? 4/13, you have the winter solstice, the spring equinox, the summer solstice, and then the autumn equinox. Okay, and don't forget the number is important because the occultist assigns 6 to represent man and 7 to represent the number of divine perfection, the climbing Jacob's ladder from 6 to 7, striving for self-perfection, sums up to 13. Okay, and that's when that represents the state of like self-achieved perfection and full illumination, and that's why they call it Illuminati. Okay, that's why they do that. So there's 8 major nights of human sacrifice in the occult system. Right now, you're going to June 21st is one, and August 1st is another one. Okay, August 1st, but what they do in between. Just don't be fooled. August 1st is coming up quickly, but remember that there are 6, if you add 6 weeks, so you'll go the Halloween being the most important, Samhain, and then the other 4 nights are only observed like equinoxes or solstices. And then if you add 6 weeks to each one, you'll get the sacrifice night, and 7 weeks to sacrifice night, and then you get the next equinox or solstice, okay? That's how they do it. So it's always based on the 6 weeks and the 7 weeks and then 13. So that's what you're going to be looking for now. Now, right now, they are in their, I don't know how you say, they are very happy, okay? Because, on May Day, she matured into the mother figure, okay? And then she will eventually get older and turn into the old lady at Halloween or Samhain. Okay, that's how that works. So right now, you have to remember that this is, for them, they are thinking they're going to get their false Messiah, their Messiah. And they are sure he's coming right now. Like he's coming. And the reason that they're doing this, or they're being so, well, to me they're being obvious. Obviously, most of the country doesn't see that. And like I said, I have friends that actually do what I do, and they're like, these people are so stupid, Julie. And I said, it's not that they're stupid. It's that I think these people are conditioned through the media and everything else. And like I said, how many of you guys have to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week? When do you have time to actually you probably don't even have time to do anything but, get your kids to bed and start all over again the next day. So I really do believe that that's part of the problem, is that you guys are just so busy working, that you don't have time, and plus knowing everything that we know takes a long time to learn. But anyway, the pagan holiday that just passed is called Litha, and it's one of the nights that's a human sacrifice. And then you have the Feast of St. John the Baptist is celebrated on the 24th of June, okay, and that's celebrated by the Freemasons. And, you say why, but that's how they do it, okay, and they celebrate both June 24th feast and the December 27th feast, okay, and those are they are at the midsummer and midwinter points, and they're astrologically connected, and that's why that, And John the Baptist was regarded as a patron saint of stonemasons in Europe. So, and the date of the feast for midsummer and midwinter were established to ease the transition from pagan worship to Christianity, right? It was all done with that. So that's what's coming, Scott. We have Independence Day. Now, I want you to hear me. 13 days after June 21st, which is 66 days after April 30th, which is the May Day celebration. Does anybody hear me? This was purposely done for July 4th because it's 13 days after June 21st, and it's 66 days after April 30th. Okay, the holiday is meant to observe the Declaration of Independence from 1776. But it was originally celebrated with giant bonfires. It was called bale fires, okay? This was actually done to pay homage to the god Baal, I know you don't want to hear that, but I'm sorry that when you're out celebrating that, the occultists are looking at you, laughing their butts off because you have no idea what you're celebrating. And I hate to take that away from you, but that's exactly what they're doing. Okay? So I'm just letting you know. I know, Scott, that's probably hard to take, but there you go. And don't forget that George Washington or John Hanson, it does not matter. They were Freemasons, and if you look at their pictures, they had the hand hidden in the jacket. I mean, in the vest. Okay, their hand was hidden. They were what they were. Stalin, same thing. Napoleon, same thing. So, and then also, you guys, we're coming up on LUNASA, which is a great Sabbath festival, and let me tell you, the killing will be bad. I'm talking horrible. That's July 19th. So, Scott, it's a busy season for these people.
Yeah, you know, it reminds me, the Resurgence movie, Independence Day 2, for this year is out, or to be out. So it'll be interesting to see what's, you know, in there that they're going to tell us about. I know that it's crazy, but, you know, there's just too much, just like when you're going through the numbers that you're rolling. Well, you know, when it comes to sacrifices, when it comes to the abuse, the numbers are outrageous. I know that some of the numbers that I've heard are as many as 10 million in the United States are satanically ritually abused, and 100 million worldwide. And you need to remember, you know, let's say that's 75% in error. Well, that's still a lot of people. The question is, how are they programmed? What are they going to do when they're triggered? Are they going to be all triggered at once? I mean, what's going on here? So mass chaos, again, order out of chaos, I think is what they're trying to do. Well, Julie, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, you know, I forgot to mention this before, and I'm just getting ready to do this tonight. I just wanted to let everybody know on the jewelry thing, I actually do every year something. It's just I do several pieces for the summer, but the one I'm going to do a piece starting now of June bugs, and I happen to love them, but I have been able to secure some of the most beautiful little crystal June bugs from Austria that are actually Swarovskis, and they are absolutely stunning, and they come in several colors. So I'm going to be doing a special summer piece, and I'm going to be entering it into a competition, but I am going to take orders for anyone who wants these. They look like little scarabs or a little June bug, and they're crystal, and they're absolutely stunning. So just so you know, I'm getting ready to start those.
Yeah. So I wanted to remind everyone, if you didn't get a chance to listen to last night's show that on psychotronics, the electronic warfare against us, I really recommend. And if you're not familiar on how to get to that, just go to my website at scotthensler.org, and you can link to the original Scott Hensler Network show on Blog Talk. And I'm going to be making a YouTube video out of that. I'm going to take some of the ones that Julie's been doing on the Orlando and make a YouTube video of that to help get it out there. And I wanted to remind everyone, too, that I have been working on getting the equipment, as Julie talked about earlier, to help scan people that may have chip implants, to locate them. That's what I've been experimenting with. I believe that everything I'm doing is going to work. I see no reason that it wouldn't. And so anyone who comes to my facility, my office here, seeking deliverance is going to get scanned. And it isn't just one scan that I'm doing. I'm doing several different things. I'll be even able to determine the particular frequency that may be radiating from a chip implant. And as Julie mentioned, that what I'm doing, even though I'm able to do it pennies on the dollar because of my engineering background of building some of this stuff myself, it still takes a little bit to do it. And I'm going to make sure that every child is scanned. And I've mentioned that before, that if you come to see me, if you can bring your kids, please, because you never know. With all this vaccination stuff they're doing, even in the hospital, if they've had any surgery recently. In fact, that's one of the main suspects. We're even seeing these implants in teeth. So if you go to the dentist, you may have something put in there. And I want to let everyone know that we're not talking about, Julie, you were talking about how they were showing these androids and so forth, that what they really have is completely, out of this world compared to the technology they show us. And my point is that they show you an RFID chip. Okay, it looks like a little thing, maybe some of them are as small as rice and so forth. That's nothing. They've got chips that will literally bond to your flesh, become part of you, start communicating through your nervous system to your brain. So otherwise they could put it in one part of your body, maybe a chip in the brain and a chip in another part, and it'll start communicating through your nervous system because it actually becomes part of your flesh. Now, that means that this chip is what we call a microcontroller. A microcontroller. A microcontroller literally is a computer, not just a computer chip of one function, but it's a multifunction. Now, when I was working for Motorola, we were doing things that they were called ceramics. And so it wasn't something like of one particular technology. It was several technologies together. And so you can have the memory storage, you can have the processor itself, you can have what we call human interface, and then input outputs from that. And in that input output, you can have also a radio transceiver. So this is why they would transmit out. But since it's a, quote, microcontroller, then of its nature, it can be reprogrammed, just like you're updating firmware. So let's say that you go to the doctor, or you go, and I was talking about some of these Samsung smart TVs, that's part of what's going on. They'll communicate. So they can download the data in a very short period of time, so it's not like you can record something, and then it can be updated. Now, I also mentioned, too, that in certain instances, which will become more and more, they're able to visually see through your eyes and hear through your ears. And then in that chip with the memory can store what you've been doing. And unfortunately, if that means that you were, enjoying your spouse in the nature that God has given us, that then they can watch that too. So be very careful what you say in public. And as the saying goes, don't believe everything that you think, because I believe that that's what's going on here. Okay, Julie. Well, we're done for tonight. And so tomorrow night I'm going to be doing those things of the corporate America to show that the United States is not really the United States. So you can join me on that. And so, Julie, we'll see you on Friday. Okay?
Right on. Bye, it's All
righty. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.